Alright, I want to keep this short and sweet. So, I'm back. Wasn't sure there if I was gonna keep making videos, but looks like I am. I'm gonna try to stick to it. Basically, what I want to talk about today is just is meat consumption moral? I think there are probably four main arguments against meat consumption, including health, the morality of it, environmental factors, and spiritual factors, if you're into that. So what I want to focus on is the morality. On a lot of the vegan recovery groups or Facebook groups for vegans who've had a lot of health problems. A lot of them have been attacked by in their vegan communities, told that they're not good vegans or they haven't done something right, and a lot of them have tried next to everything, if not everything, and they're still screwed up. So there are these groups, and there's a lot of support there for them. It's very accepting. So yeah, one of the big issues I see is not just the health issues, but it's also people dealing with the whole moral side. So, is it right or wrong? That's a big question. Well, with morality, first of all, I just want to say the actual definition of morality is something that is well, if something is moral, then it is socially acceptable. Maybe there is an objective morality. Maybe there is some judge, some divine, omniscient judge, but we don't know that. So for now, we have to set that aside. So as soon as you ask, is something right or wrong, you have to ask, within what context? Is it right for these goals or those goals? That makes sense, right? So when someone asks me, do you think killing animals is right or wrong, I usually say you don't really want to get in that conversation because it might challenge some of your concepts of what the fuck right or wrong actually means. I mean, again, it's contextual. So the definition, the pragmatic definition, because as soon as you set aside ideology, feelings like what seems right, maybe probably based off of your unconscious beliefs, then you have to get down to the core of it, which is what is something we can all agree on, or that we can best agree on, to get along, to make life tolerable, at least, or fairly fair. I think that's fair to say. So, simply enough, morality has to be applied to the relative world, like the actual tangible pragmatic world, if we want to figure any of this out. So what works? What are our goals? I think we want our environment to be good. We want to be healthy, we want to be happy, we want to be economically in a decent position. We want to be happy. So does meat get in the way of that? And if you're asking yourself at this point, well, what about what the cows want? Well, I'm sorry, but we don't know. We can't know that. And does what they want actually play out on the largest scale as something that is good for the most? And I'm going to talk about how that is not the case. Probably. We don't know what the cows want, and that makes it very hard to have a moral discussion with them, right? So, basically, if we want our morals to sustain a healthy, happy, sustainable society, then we have to talk about, well, health, I'm going to talk about in another video, but for now, environmental factors, right? So, the mainstream opinion is No, it is not sustainable. It is terrible for the environment. Cows fart methane and greenhouse gases, and we're being cruel and we're destroying land. Well, I hate to say it, but if we leave these cows alone, first of all, they've been domesticated for hundreds of years. There's not really, they have nowhere to go. And something that I feel like gets surprisingly little attention. Maybe I'm very aware of it because I went out and I lived in the wild for a while. I traveled around Canada. I lived in the Yukon. I saw people's attitudes, the way they live. It's, I mean, this is the basic native perspective. It's the circle of life. The herbivores or the prey and the predator evolved alongside one another. If you take one out of the equation, things get bad quick. You need the herbivores to fertilize the soil, and you need the predators to keep them from eating fucking everything. Because in the cases where humans have come in, and it's only in cases where almost only in cases where humans have come in and removed predators from an environment, from an ecosystem, what we see is that the ruminants or the herbivorous, I never know how to pronounce that, herbivorous, I'm going to just say it like that, deal with it. Animals eat everything. They breed, they overbreed, and even though they're shitting everywhere and fertilizing the soil and helping things grow, they tend to outstrip. They breed too much, and they end up outstripping the land. And this has been seen in national parks here in Canada, all over the world, but I'm talking locally here. This is where I'm from, so I know I've read more about this specifically, these cases, but they would originally take out some wolves from national parks, to make it more friendly for travelers, and there's just kind of a stigma against predators in general. And then it took barely 2 years before the deer had stripped everything away. And it's not like deer don't eat trees, right? But they eat everything they can, and it's a whole ecosystem, right? Everything supports everything else. So it ended up like utterly barren so fast that the trees were dying off here and there, like they were drying out. Anyways, so some ecologists saw this and they released a few wolves into the park, and lo and behold, it took very little time for everything to come back and to work out quite nicely, to bloom. So other than that, I mean, to grow plants, first of all, we need dead animals. We need bone meal. We need manure, but we need all kinds of products that do require killing animals. Unless you're talking about extreme cases of like hydroponics and vertical agriculture, which are extremely expensive, make for mutated plants that our systems have never had to deal with. I'll talk about that in another video as well, but our bodies can't really handle these very unnatural plants. There's cases now in zoos where animals are developing the equivalent of diabetes because fruit have become so hybridized. They're so full of sugar, so lacking in other supportive nutrients that would have existed in a very specific balance that our bodies and other animals' bodies have evolved to work with. So what else here? Yeah, I mean, I've worked on farms. I've talked to people who pick up tractor kills. It's a very common profession or task on farms. People follow tractors around and pick up dead animals. There are people often who walk around with rifles and will shoot any rodents that they see. Some of these monocrop agricultural areas, like, most notably for, like, say, corn or soy, other grains, they're so sterilized with insecticides. Nothing living can stay there. There's plenty of farms where people have to wear double hazmat suits just to work there. Let's see, what else? I could just keep pumping out these explanations, these arguments. It goes on forever. I want to keep this not too long. But another case. Damn, I just lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, if people stopped eating meat up north, then they would have to ship a lot more food up there. And I already talked about how eating non-local food is terrible. Out of season, non-local food. Your biology is just not set up for it. It's extremely aware of its environment and the light cycles, the circadian cycles, the cycles of the season. You want to eat what grows naturally near you, what grows and is raised naturally around you, most ideally. So, I mean, just shipping the food up north, do you really think that's good for the environment? No. And it's terrible for your health. So, that wouldn't work either. Let's see what else. Okay. Morally speaking, again, if you're a spiritual person and you believe in a God that's judging all of this, or the concept of karma, first of all, karma was created by a culture. The concept itself, it comes originally from Vedic philosophy or Kashmir Shaivism. I've been raised around this stuff. My parents, my mother has been teaching this stuff for over 30 years. They're just library books in our home of, just libraries of this stuff, of these topics. I'm seeped in it. Anyways, the Brahmins, the sages or intellectuals, one of the parts of the upper class, they often, they considered meat to be amrit, or food of the gods kind of thing, really fucking good for you. And they kind of set a precedent. They would tell the lower castes through what they called Ayurveda, which was sort of the health tradition back then and there, that they had to eat certain plants and like greens or all that were good, and they did that in large part to keep them weak and dumb. And this has been repeated. Sumeria, Egypt, China, Greece, Rome, and even not to an extreme degree, but in certain cases, like with the royal family in Britain, a cook recently came out and talked about how they ate mostly a meat-based diet, very, very low in carbohydrates. Not to say that is necessarily optimal for all cases, but I'm just talking about what are the historical trends here, and where the concept itself of karma comes from. Unfortunately, karma is something that we can't really verify. I'm not saying that it's completely not true. It has no validity whatsoever. But if you're interested in that topic, please go in depth, and don't look so much as at the Western teachers of these things. Try to go deep into like the roots of these cultures, the philosophies. Look at the Agori Sadhu. It's these people who basically just meditate on death constantly and trying to accept it, and realize that it's an incredibly important part of the whole cycle of life. Anything else? I took notes. That's not something I usually do. I just felt like I should have some of these things down. So basically, yeah, we are a predator's role in nature. Just to put this in context, a basic biological fact that is known is that you can't produce. It's incredibly difficult for a living being to produce the energy necessary to both have a very large gut, which is necessary to process cellulose into short chain fatty acids for energy, and have a big brain. You can't have both. It's the same way salamanders don't have big brains, but their nervous system goes all over the body, and thus they have a much better ability to regenerate limbs. We can't do that nearly as well, but we've focused more of our energy into processing our prefrontal cortex so that we can actually think and be smart. And also, use our hands, build tools, that kind of stuff. So understanding that, predators have larger brains. They are better at regulating the environment. They're better at making sure that the ruminants, the herbivores, don't destroy the land, and also not eat too many of them as to make themselves starve and screw up the whole cycle. And that means we are the most responsible species on Earth. I agree, we've done things pretty terribly at times, but that doesn't make us the enemy. It just means that we have so much power that we should all be putting more energy into learning as much as we can about how to use it properly. So yeah, alright, I'm back, guys, and I'm going to try to do this kind of a thing more regularly. If you disagree with anything I talk about, always let me know. Send me a message or comments down below. Just be civil. I'm never going to insult any groups. I encourage everyone's perspective. If you agree or disagree, let me know. Let's keep this conversation rolling. We don't know everything. So yeah, let's refine our understanding. Cool. I'm out.